Perfect, we are recording. And I'm going to share my screen again. Crystal, you can see the PowerPoint? Yeah, okay, awesome. Okay, so just a few housekeeping. I'm sure you all noticed that you're muted today. So we're going to keep participants on mute during the presentation just to make things a little bit smoother. Please, when you're using the chat function, don't send personal information in the chat, so your email or phone numbers, because we are recording this session, so the chat is recorded. And when we post it online later, that means that all of your personal information will also be posted online, so we don't want that to happen. You can use the chat to ask questions. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat. Crystal will be monitoring it during the presentation. And I'll also go at the end of the presentation to the chat to answer any questions that are still remaining. So definitely chat away with questions, just don't share your personal information, please. Crystal, the slides are changing? Yeah, perfect. So this is what we're going to talk about today. So it's a lot of information. We're going to talk about planning your arrival, what you need to know in terms of quarantine requirements, arrival services, all of the resources that we can give you to help you prepare. We're going to talk about arriving in Canada. So the forms that you have to submit, an app that you need to download, what documents you need to bring to the airport with you. And then we're going to talk about the quarantine period. So kind of what to expect, all of the check-ins that you'll be getting, how to stay connected with Fanshawe, and testing at the end of that. So a lot of information, but again, you can have a copy of the presentation. So don't worry about writing down any of the links. We'll make sure that you get that information.
I actually just added it, so.
Perfect. So in the chat, there's a PDF version of the presentation for anyone who wants it. We'll send it again at the end. So as I think most of you know, there's a new requirement because of COVID for students to travel to Canada. Your institution has to be on a list of approved DLIs, which are designated learning institutions, with approved COVID readiness plans. So at this time, Fanshawe has received provincial government approval for our COVID plan, which we've submitted in August. But we're still waiting to be added to that official list on the IRCC, the Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada website. So until Fanshawe's on that official public list, we are encouraging students to wait and only book your travel after we're on that list to avoid any issues at the border, because we do need to be on that list for you to be able to enter Canada. Now we expect to be on that list by mid-November, which is coming up like next week, hopefully would be great. But unfortunately, we can't say a specific date because we just can't guarantee it. It's the government's decision. But I can say that we've been provincially approved, and right now we're just waiting to be added to that list. The list will be updated mid-November. As soon as we're on the list, we'll email all students, and then you can start planning your arrival and purchasing tickets and doing what you need to do to come to Canada. The link on this page is the link to the approved list. So if you want to go in and check, that's the link you need to use. So some important dates for you to remember. So again, mid-November, we're expecting Fanshawe to appear on the approved list. December 23rd is an important date. All students in blended programs, so those are programs where you have online learning, but also in-class learning. So maybe you have a lab where you have to come to campus. Blended program students must arrive in Canada by December 23rd. And that's because you need to complete your 14-day quarantine before the start of classes in January, because you have to be there for the start of classes to do your safety orientation, to do your campus orientation. You have to be physically ready to be in London. So your deadline to get to Canada is December 23rd. From December 24th to January 3rd, Fanshawe College is actually closed. The college closes over the Christmas holidays and the New Year holidays. So that means that campus is closed. Our office, the international office, will be operating, but at very limited capacity. So our arrival services team, Crystal and I, well, not Crystal, she'll be away, but I'll be there, our manager will be there. So we will be checking email, though not as frequently. It will be a little delayed because it is the holidays. But for the most part, the college is closed during that period. And then on January 4th, we'll reopen, everything will be operating as normal. And that's when online students can continue to arrive. So online students, if you're studying fully online, you can arrive before December 23rd if you want. That's totally up to you, that's fine. And then you can also arrive after January 4th because since your program is fully online, you can do your courses while you're in quarantine. But a student in a blended program can't do that because they have to physically be on campus. So that's the difference there. January 8th is the program orientation day, and then January 11th is the first day of classes, which will be a very exciting day. So these are the important dates that you want to remember when you're planning your flights and your quarantine and all of that. So quarantine requirements, this is the big question for a lot of students, and I understand why. So the Canadian government sets the quarantine requirements. It's not Fanshawe who's making up the rules, it's the government. So it's the same for all schools. To get started, I would highly encourage everyone to go to the government website and read through all the quarantine requirements yourself. And that's what this link is. And it's just useful because then you see exactly what they're saying. All travelers have to isolate themselves for 14 days when they come to Canada, and that's immediately isolate. So that means when you land in the airport, you go through border security, get your luggage, and then you have to go directly to your quarantine accommodation. So you can't stop for food, you can't stop to visit family, you have to go straight from the airport to your quarantine accommodation. During your quarantine, so during that 14 days, you have to stay in your quarantine accommodation at all times. Unless you're seeking like urgent medical care, you have to stay in your quarantine. You can't go get groceries, you can't go for a walk, you have to stay in that location and things come to you instead of you going to them. You're not allowed to have guests or visitors, even if they, like you're hanging out in a backyard and you think you're socially distancing, that's not allowed during your quarantine, so during those 14 days. You should be monitoring your health for any symptoms. So if you start to feel sick or anything like that, you need to kind of be aware and keep track of your health. And you'll also be receiving daily check-ins. So you're not completely alone during your quarantine. Physically, yes, but we'll be reaching out to students. Fanshawe will be reaching out to students every day to see how you're doing, have a chat, make sure you're feeling okay, see if you have any questions. So you're going to have contact for sure. So again, the expectations, you won't leave your quarantine for any reason except for urgent medical care. So you're really not feeling well. You shouldn't be using shared spaces. So for example, if you're quarantining in a hotel and that hotel has a gym for the guests, you can't go use the hotel gym. You have to stay in your hotel room because you're really not supposed to interact or be in a space where other people will interact with you during your quarantine. Again, you should not have guests during your quarantine for any reason. You really need to avoid contact with anyone who did not travel with you. So unless someone came on the exact same flight on the exact same day, you should not be in contact with those people because they really were trying to limit the exposure in case you are sick or in case someone else is sick and the spread of COVID. So really avoiding contact. Clean and disinfecting spaces after use is really important. So for example, if you're sharing a bathroom with someone, making sure that you have maybe Lysol wipes to wipe the door handles and wipe the taps in the sink to make sure that everything is clean immediately. And then wearing a mask. So if for any reason you have to leave your bedroom, you have to wear a mask at all times and you should be maintaining that social distancing. But again, the stress is really not to leave your quarantine location for any reason, if possible. So this gets down into the accommodation requirements, and students have a lot of questions about what's allowed for your accommodation requirements. And again, because it's the government who sets the quarantine requirements and the accommodation, what's acceptable, what's not, Fanshawe can't guarantee that your plan will absolutely be approved. We can give you recommendations, but ultimately it's your choice. And it's the border official that you interact with at the airport that's going to make the final decision of yes, this is an acceptable accommodation, or no, you need to make other plans. So we're here to give you as much information as possible so you can make the best choice. So your quarantine accommodation, you should have access to basic necessities. So like running water, heat in the winter is very important for Canada. So any apartment would have this, but just those kind of basic things that you'll need. Internet will be very important for you guys. And you should not be quarantining with anyone who's high risk. And for Canada, we've defined high risk as anyone who's over the age of 65 and anyone who has underlying medical conditions. So if you had a chronic medical condition, maybe you're immunocompromised, where you can get sick more easily, you should not be quarantining around those people. The big question that most students have is the government has said that you should not be living in a group or community living environment. Specifically, you should not be sharing a small apartment. You should not be living in the same house with a large family or a lot of other roommates. And you should not be living or quarantining with roommates who have not traveled with you. So the real, I think, key phrase here is people that you can't avoid. So some students have shared apartments where they have their own private bedroom and their own private bathroom, but it's maybe like a shared kitchen and living room. And that can work for a quarantine because you stay in your bedroom, you only use your bathroom, and your roommates will bring you the food. You're not using that common living space, you're avoiding your roommates. But if it's a situation where you actually share your bedroom with someone else, that's not going to work because you can't avoid that person. So that's where you really have to be paying attention and be very clear in your planning. If you're going to be in a shared house, you have to make sure that you can avoid everyone else that's in that house so that you're not interacting with them unless they traveled with you. If you came on the same flight, you can interact. So there are some options for you guys. The hotel is probably the safest option in terms of being approved by the border official and making sure that you're not interacting with anyone who hasn't traveled with you, because you have a private room, you'd stay in that room, you're not going to interact with anyone, right? You're not going to spread germs in your permanent apartment, for example. And Fanshawe's actually negotiated discounted rates with a few local hotels in London across the city so that students who want to quarantine in a hotel can have a kind of a special price and save a little bit of money. So depending on the hotel you choose, the rate is between $55 and $100 per night. Most of these rooms include a TV, that includes internet access for the 2 weeks. Some of them have a phone in the room and can also include breakfast. So one of your meals will be provided to you. All of the hotels too are allowing delivery, so grocery deliveries to come right to your room, for example, so that you really don't need to leave your hotel room. So it's really convenient for students. Any student who's living in residence can also quarantine in residence. Now you have to be living in residence for the full term, for the full 4 months. But if that's the case, then yep, you're welcome to move into residence and quarantine there as well. And again, you'll have your own room, you'll have your own bathroom, delivery will come to your suite. So really convenient. And then again, you can do a private rental. So if you're maybe a level 3 student coming back to Canada, and you already have an apartment in Canada that you want to move into, as long as you can avoid everyone else in that apartment, you could make that work. Or we've had other students just rent out an Airbnb and stay in that Airbnb, which again, as long as you're the only person in that space or only the people traveling with you in that space, then that can work too. We do have a resource list. So we have an isolation resource list that we'll share with students and that we send out to students fairly regularly that has all of the hotel options, all of the other resources that we'll get to. So we can send that out to you as well. So other resources. So there's a lot of way to get things delivered to you right now, which is at least very convenient during your quarantine time. So these are some of the services offering grocery delivery. And grocery doesn't just mean food. You can also get like health supplies or cleaning supplies, whatever you need from the big grocery stores. So if you needed like toothpaste or shampoo, that can be delivered as well. You can get prepped meals delivered to you, or you can just get the raw groceries if you want to cook. It's really whatever you like. But these are some nice services in London. And there's even more. So again, on that resources guide, we have everything you need to kind of help you plan through, okay, how am I going to survive 2 weeks in one location without leaving, so that you can have everything you need brought to you. Another cool resource that we think will be really helpful for students is a company called Phonebox. And basically this allows you to get a Canadian SIM card for your cell phone so that you have a working cell phone in Canada, mailed to your address wherever you are in the world. So the SIM card will be sent to China or India, Brazil, wherever you live, before you come to Canada, so that right when you land in the airport in Toronto or London or wherever you land in Canada, you can just pop that SIM card into your cell phone and have a working Canadian phone number, which is really convenient during your quarantine, because then you can call the grocery store, for example, or you can call the international office, you can call whoever you want. And it also helps you stay connected with the ArriveCAN app, which we're going to talk about later in this presentation. But it's just very, very helpful. We know from the fall semester, the students who had cell phones reported having a much easier time staying in touch and getting organized and kind of transitioning to their post-quarantine life when they were able to move out of their quarantine accommodation. So I would definitely recommend looking into this. What's really nice is you can choose to only commit for 1 month. So you only have to pay, I think the minimum is 30 Canadian dollars. And then after that month, if you don't like it, you can switch to another provider in London. So again, some quarantine resources for you. We have the self-isolation resource list, and then we also have the checklist. And the checklist outlines everything you need to have printed with you when you land and you're going through border services at the airport. So both very good documents that are very useful to have. And again, they're on the website. And if you don't know where to find them, you can email Fanshawe Cares at fanshawec.ca, and Crystal will throw that in. And we can send them to you through email, sorry. Some useful links as well. Everything that we're talking about today is on the Fanshawe Arrivals website. And then again,
Caitlin, can I just interrupt you for a second?
Sorry?
Just guys, I've sent the PDF twice in the chat. It's telling me that it uploaded successfully. Is nobody able to see the link? Oh, okay. So, okay.
I think
so
if you're
some people got it.
If you're using a cell phone to watch this webinar, you won't be able to see the PDF. That's what I remember from last time. So in that case, just wait. You can email Fanshawe Cares after the presentation and we'll send you the PDF by email. Yeah.
Thank you,
Crystal.
Caitlin. Sorry.
No problem. So again, some useful links here. The Fanshawe website has all of this information. So definitely like bookmark that. It's very useful. And then the IRCC, which is the government website for travel and entry into Canada, all of the information and their rules, this is the link for that as well. So some very useful links there. Fanshawe also has our arrival services. So this is something that we've been doing even before COVID, but now with COVID, it's even more important and even more helpful for students. So we will happily arrange a free shuttle for you from the Toronto airport or the London airport to your quarantine accommodation. And the shuttle providers that we use, so like Robert Q and Driver's Seat, which are pictured here, they're following COVID rules. So they meet the quarantine rules that the government requires for travel. So again, we can pick you up at the airport, bring you to your place in London or Woodstock, so that you have that door-to-door transportation and that you're getting to your quarantine location without stopping in a safe and efficient manner. And it's free, so why not use it? So this is for all students who are entering Canada. So it doesn't matter if you're a brand new student or if you're returning, maybe for your second program, you can still use this service. And we will talk about how to request this service in a minute.
And 1 second, Caitlin. Sorry, yeah. I'm sorry. There's just a few questions about it. So if you are traveling as a family, we will actually cover the cost of your whole family to travel together. So there'll be no extra cost to get you from the airport to your location. Okay. Sorry, Caitlin. Thank you.
No, please jump in whenever you can. So we're going to move on to now like the actual arrival in Canada, what you can expect. This is the Toronto Pearson Airport, so you'll probably recognize it when you come, and talk about what you need to do, what forms you need to bring. So before you arrive in Canada, this is very important. Before you arrive in Canada, you must submit the Fanshawe COVID Readiness Form. So this is a form that you're submitting to Fanshawe College. And this is what you're going to basically notify the college that you're coming to Canada for the winter semester. You're going to share all of your arrival information. So the day you're coming, your flight number, the time that you land in Toronto or London or wherever you're landing. This is also the form that you can use to request that free transportation service. So the shuttle from the airport to your quarantine accommodation, that request is in this form. You're going to be sharing your quarantine plan. So you're going to tell us where you're staying for your 14-day quarantine, how we can contact you during those 14 days. And you're also going to have to read through the quarantine rules and say that you agree to follow them and commit to those rules. So this form has to be submitted at least 5 days before you travel to Canada. So there's a student who's coming to Canada on December 13th, and she's already submitted the form. So that's great. It can be more than 5 days, but it has to be at least 5 days before you come. You do need to have your flight information and your quarantine accommodation organized before you can fill out the form. So if you don't have that yet, don't worry. Just whenever you have your flight booked and your quarantine accommodation booked, that's when you'll fill out this form. And it's very important. Every single student has to fill out this form. So how you can fill it out. So we've already emailed the link once to all students, and we're going to continue to email this link once a week right up until the start of the winter semester. You can also find the form on the Fanshawe Arrivals website, which is the link at the bottom of this slide. To complete the form, it's really easy. You log in with your Fanshawe username and password. If you don't know your username and password, just send us an email and we'll send you the information. You'll fill out all of your travel information. So again, that's your arrival date, your flight number, your flight arrival time, the airport that you're coming to. You'll request the free transportation if you want it. If you have other plans, then we just ask you to tell us what your plans are. You can't take like a public bus or public transport from the airport to your quarantine accommodation. So we just double check that to make sure that whatever your plans are, that they're going to meet the requirements. But most students will take our free service because it's free and convenient, so why not? And then finally, you'll tell us your quarantine plan. So again, you'll tell us, this is the address where I'm going to live for my 14-day quarantine. This is my phone number. This is my email. This is how you can contact me during that 14 days. So you fill out all of that and then you just hit submit and you'll get an email confirmation. So some common questions about this form. When should I complete the form? You should complete the form once your flights and your accommodation are booked and at least 5 days before you arrive in Canada, because we need time to review your plan and organize your shuttle if you've requested it and send you approval. So at least 5 days. If you don't want to use the arrival services from Fanshawe, for example, you're going to rent a car from the airport and drive it to your quarantine, that's fine, but you still have to fill out the form. You still have to tell us what your plans are for arrival. And some students, you know, they're planning to come to Canada, but maybe you don't have your study permit approval yet, or you haven't booked your flight yet, you're waiting on more information. That's fine. You don't have to submit the form right away. Wait until you have your travel plans confirmed and then submit the form. So this form will be open right up until the start of classes, so you have time to get it done. You don't have to rush through it and guess if you're not certain on exactly when you're going to arrive yet. So you have, we'd rather have the right information. Another thing that you're going to have to do before you come to Canada is download the ArriveCAN app onto your phone. This is an app that the Canadian government has created, and starting November 21st, which is before most of you are probably going to arrive in Canada, it's going to be mandatory for all travelers entering Canada. And basically you download the app before you come to Canada, like maybe the day before or the day of your flight to Canada. You'll go in and put all of your information into it, which is again, like your name, your document number, your quarantine plan, where you're going to live in Canada, your contact information, that sort of thing. Put it all into the app, and then you'll get, once it's done, you'll get a receipt, so a code that proves that you've submitted everything in the app, and the border officer will ask to see that code. So it makes getting through security and the border a lot quicker once you land if you have it all done, but you have to do it like almost the day of travel. You can't do it a month in advance. So it's quick to do, but you have to do it kind of right as you're coming to Canada. Other documents that you'll want to bring with you. So you'll want to bring kind of 2 batches of documents is how I think about it. So you'll have your quarantine documents, and then you'll just have the regular documents that you need to enter Canada as an international student. So your quarantine documents, you want to bring confirmation of where you're going to be staying. So for example, if you're staying in a hotel, bring a printed copy of your booking confirmation that shows I'm going to be in this hotel from this day to this day, or I'm going to be in this Airbnb from this day to this day. Bring some sort of printed proof of what you've arranged. If you've arranged for your transportation from the airport to your quarantine location, again, bring something that proves that. So when you book your arrival services through Fanshawe, we'll send you an email that says, great, your shuttle is confirmed. It's on this day, this time. This is how many people are in the shuttle. We send you all of that in an email. So you would just print that email. Make
Caitlin?
sure that you have, oh, sorry.
Hi, sorry, just a quick question for you.
Yep.
You know, does the whole family need to fill out an ArriveCAN app? Like whether it's a husband and wife traveling or a whole family, or is it just the student?
The whole family does, but I think if you're traveling and you're actually family members, like you're related, you can, one person can download the app and you can all put your information in together. So there's an option to say traveler 1, traveler 2, traveler 3, and just only kind of fill it out once for all of you. But if you're friends traveling together, you're not actually related, then you each have to do the app.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Yeah, thank you. So again, if you've booked, like you know that you're getting grocery delivered on your second day because you've pre-organized it, make sure that you print that confirmation. You want to bring just as much documents that you can prove so you can show the border officer, I know that this are the quarantine rules, this is my plan, this is how I'm going to follow them. So printed copies of all of that. And then your regular documents that you need to enter Canada as an international student. So obviously your passport, your visa if necessary, that introduction letter for your study permit that shows you can get your study permit. You'll want to bring your letter of acceptance from Fanshawe, any proof of funds that you use to get your visa or study permit, so like your bank statements, that sort of thing, and any other documents that were recommended by the visa office. So for example, if your wife or your husband is coming with you, bring your marriage certificate to show that they actually are your legal spouse. So if you're not certain on what you should be bringing in terms of your regular international entry requirements, you can email us or email the immigration. We'll confirm that for you because it's a little bit different for every student. But then for your quarantine, just bring printed copies of everything. They really want to see the paper. You can't just have it on your phone. They want to see printed copies. So even come with a little document folder, have it all nice and organized, and it'll be a lot easier and a lot faster to go through security at the airport. So just a summary, all students entering Canada, you have to have your quarantine plan prepared and your COVID readiness form submitted before you come to Canada. You have to go directly from the airport to your quarantine location, no stopping for food or to visit family or anything like that. You should be wearing a mask at all times. So even when you get off the plane in Toronto, keep your mask on. You need to wear it in the airport. You need to wear it in the shuttle to your quarantine accommodation. Just get comfy with that mask because you're not going to take it off. And you should also be maintaining social distancing while you're traveling. So again, keeping space between you in lines at the immigration queue or when you're getting baggage. In the shuttle, we make sure to keep the seat open in between students. So just keeping that distance to try and avoid the spread of germs. Any questions you want to address right now, Crystal? Yeah.
Perfect. Yes. So any kind of mask is going to be okay. It doesn't have to be medical, but it does have to cover the nose and mouth area, and you must leave it over both. So having it just over your mouth isn't going to be acceptable. It has to be around the nose and the mouth area, but it can be a cloth mask. It could be a medical one if you wanted. It could be a disposable one. There are tons of options, or even some people are wearing like a buff. So it's more like a thing you tie on your neck and pull it up and over. Okay. Mm-hmm. So lots of options for that. When you're planning to travel, you need to kind of create a budget for what kind of funds you will need, because you will not be able to go and do any sort of banking until you're done your quarantine. So kids under 12 have to wear, or sorry, kids over 12 have to have a mask on. I do see that most parents here are putting kids that are over the age of probably 5, because even our school age kids have to have a mask on.
I think it's any kid over the age of 2, Crystal, has to wear a mask.
Is it 2 now? Okay, yeah. So they did make some more changes. My tiny guy is only 2, so he doesn't wear a mask. But I know like my nieces and nephews who are 4 and 5 do. So yes, so the kids would have to wear a mask in public. If your children are going to school, they'll have to wear a mask at school as well. Okay. And it's just a hopefully. keep
Sorry.
the spread of COVID under control. So cash for groceries might be a bit difficult because you're going to have to order them online. So you may want to have prearranged a credit card or a bank account that you can do like debit purchasing through online. And I did send the self-isolation resource list earlier. I can send it again if you would like. And would everybody like the information on local hotels and stuff sent?
Might as well send it again.
Okay, I'll just
Doesn't
send it
hurt.
all again.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Yeah.
we'll let Caitlin get back to the presentation portion, and I will keep trying to answer your questions.
Great. And then I just pulled my mask out as an example. So this is just a cloth mask that I use. It goes around the back of my head. But again, that covering, I don't know if you can hear me, but covering your nose and your mouth is really the key piece there to cover both. Okay, oops. So now finally for the actual quarantine period, that 14 days, what can you expect? Because it's a new thing. Most people haven't had to quarantine before. So you will be getting checked in. So by kind of two people, Fanshawe is going to be checking on you, but also the Canadian government might actually check on you as well. So after you arrive in Canada, excuse me, you might receive a phone call from the government, just checking in to make sure that you're actually in the quarantine location you said you would be in, and that you haven't left and you don't have any major symptoms. So the call will come from this number. It is an official government check-in. You don't need to, like, you're not in trouble. It's not that you're breaking the rules or getting into trouble or anything like that. You just have to answer the call when they call you, because they just want to make sure that you're actually home at the number that you said you would be at, which shows that you're not breaking quarantine. So if you see this number calling you, please answer it. It's okay, you're not in trouble, but it's just important that you answer the call from the government for the quarantine. Not all students get a call. It really seems to be random from what I've heard so far from students. So maybe you won't even get the call, but just make sure if you do, you just answer it and have a quick chat. Fanshawe is also going to be checking in on you. So we'll be calling students a couple times throughout the 14 days just to check in, see how you're doing, if you have any questions, whether it's about your quarantine or about your courses or really anything you want to talk about. So we'll call you a couple times just to see what's up, but you're also going to get daily check-in emails from us. And that check-in email will have a link to the online quarantine check-in form. And it's really important that students complete that form every day during your quarantine. And we only need it for the student. We don't need you to say it for any family that's traveling with you, but each student has to fill out that form every day of their quarantine to show that they're following the rules. It's really quick. It only takes like maybe a minute or two to fill out, but it's very, very important that you fill it out every day. So the email that you give us in that COVID readiness form that you submit that says, this is the email you can contact me at, that's the email that we're going to send it to so that you can check it every day and fill it out. So just make sure that you're doing that. And if you have any questions when we call, you can ask. We're also going to be doing some online events so that you can stay kind of connected to the Fanshawe community during your quarantine. Because you're not allowed to leave, it can get a little boring, right? There's only so much Netflix that someone can watch in a day. So we're trying to do a couple things just to keep students engaged and active. So for example, this Fanshawe Live series is one thing that we're going to be repeating again in December. So you can join us every day and just kind of chat during your quarantine. Our student union is doing some digital events. So for example, bingo, there's a Diwali celebration coming up and some more things that will be coming later on. And then your online orientation in January will also be happening. So there will be things going on with different departments, and you can join those online from your quarantine very easily. We send out a digital kind of calendar once a month with all the event information, and that's also on the Fanshawe website again. So you can go on, see what's happening and join that way. And then you can reach out to the international office for any reason at any time during your quarantine. So you can call us, you can email Fanshawe Cares, or you can even book an online appointment to speak with one of our student life coordinators Monday to Friday, anytime. So we are here for you. You can definitely reach out. We're happy to help if you have any questions, whether it's about your quarantine or you just want to talk about the winter semester or you're not sure about when quarantine's done, where you should go to get your banking set up. Really, any questions that you have, you can reach out and we're happy to chat with you. And it's your choice, whatever method you prefer to do. So we're happy to talk. And then finally, there is a new requirement that new students will have to get a COVID test during their quarantine period. This is a very new requirement, so we're still working out the details of exactly how it's going to happen for students. But what I can say is that Fanshawe is going to provide the test for students at no cost, so you don't have to worry about paying anything for the test, and we'll be arranging the test for you. So you will get an email during your quarantine saying, okay, this is the instructions on how, where, and when that you're going to be tested, and you'll probably be brought to the campus clinic to get your test done. But again, we're still working out some of the fine details. So I just wanted you to be aware this is something you're going to experience. You will have to get a COVID test, but the finer details will be sent to you during your quarantine so that you can be prepared for that. And that is the presentation. So we have about 20 minutes. I'm just going to stop my share and get the chat open here so that I can answer some of the questions. Crystal, are there any pending that you've seen or any that have been repeated?
So there's a whole bunch. They've actually asked a lot of questions, which is great. I apologize. I am not the fastest typer. There is questions around who they can live with. So yes, you can live with family or friends, but during your quarantine period, you must have a plan to keep yourself separate from them. So as long as you have a private bedroom, ideally you'd have a private bathroom. If you don't, you can still stay with them, but you are responsible for making sure every time you use the bathroom that you're disinfecting the surfaces. Okay.
Sorry, Crystal, I would just add to that. You're going to have to convince the border officer that you have that plan in place. So if you're living with friends and family, it might be a good idea just to write down like a really simple statement saying, I'm going to live at this address. There are, you know, my cousin is also living in this address. We each have our own private bedroom. We're going to share a bathroom, but we're going to leave, you know, the wipes in the bathroom so that we can clean it immediately when we're leaving. I'm going to stay in my bedroom. I know I have to avoid contact with her. So just like write out a really simple letter that's just kind of stating what you're going to do so that the border officer can see you know the rules and you plan to follow them, because they're the one that's going to make the final decision. So you really just want to show them, I know the rules. I'm going to stay away from this person as much as possible. And where I can't, I'm going to wear a mask and clean immediately. I do see a question here. Do I have to get tested before flying to Canada? No, you don't. They're not going to ask you for a recent test. It seems like some countries and some airlines won't let you on the plane if you're showing obvious symptoms. And obviously you shouldn't travel if you have symptoms of COVID-19. But that varies a lot depending on country and airline. So that seems to be kind of arbitrary. But no, you don't need to show a negative test to come to Canada.
And so we are recommending not to travel between the 24th to the 3rd. If students like last minute somehow end up stuck and end up arriving during that period, we would do our best to assist you, but someone may not be monitoring the emails on a daily basis. So you may get missed. So we are strongly recommending do not try to travel between those dates because we just don't want to see students arriving without plans because you will likely be turned around at the border. And also, if you need resources and help during that time, we just don't have the staff available to fully make sure that you're adjusting and everything you need is accessible during that time frame.
I see a question here about Fanshawe username and passwords. So your username and password is the same credential that you use to log into WebAdvisor, to Fanshawe Online, to basically any like Fanshawe system. You use the same username and password for all of them. If you don't know your username and password, go back and check your email, specifically your junk email folder, because that is automatically generated by the college and it's emailed to you once you're admitted to Fanshawe. So it's probably like a couple months back, but go back and check. If you still can't find it, you can send an email to Fanshawe Cares or to international@fanshawec.ca. Just send us your student number and say, I don't know what my username is. We can send you the username and we'll send you the link to reset your password. And then you can just go in and get access again. So it doesn't take very long. You just have to reach out to us with your student number and we'll get you that info. Just going through all the questions here, trying to find some ones.
So there was a question there, and this one is a little bit tricky because I'm not sure, but we have a student who had tested positive in their home country in October. They've now cleared their 14 days. Will they still be able to travel, which we do think you should be able to, but would the non-active virus show up in their test?
See, that's a science question that I don't really know. I would say if you've tested positive, well, okay, so it changes for every country, right? Every country is approaching this differently. In Canada, what I can say is that once you've tested positive, you're not supposed to leave your quarantine until you have 2 consecutive negative test results. So they would make you wait 14 days or until your symptoms end, go get another test, make sure that it comes back negative, wait a couple more days, get another test, make sure that it comes back negative, and that's when you're considered to be resolved to not have COVID anymore. Obviously, every country is going to be different. So I don't know at what point the COVID antibodies, I don't even know if that's the right word, to be honest, the COVID leaves your system. But I would say if you have tested positive, it probably is a good idea to get tested again and make sure you're negative before you travel. But you might have to, I don't know, you might have to call the airline or even you can contact Canadian Border Services. They have an open question line. So if you're not sure about your quarantine plan or a question like this, you can send them an email or you can call them and just say, here's the situation, what should I do? And they'll be able to best advise you on how to kind of handle it. So I would say reach out to them too, because they might say, you know what, you have to have a negative test if you've already tested positive, or they might say, nope, if it's been X amount of time, you can just come. So they would be the best people to ask, I think.
And yes, so if you currently have an AIP, so the level 1 approval for a visa, you can start your classes online from your home country. If you don't get the final approval for the next level, then you would need to withdraw because you can't actually be fully studying without the visa. So because of COVID-19, they've kind of started this process where you can kind of start as long as you have the AAIP. Caitlin, do you know what happens with fees and those sorts of things if they don't get the second level approval?
It depends when. So for the fall semester, for students who are studying online in the fall with AIP, if you receive the second level denial by a certain date, you could get a refund. But obviously, if you've written your exams, the semester is done, and then you receive a denial, you've got the credit, so you can't get a refund. So it all depends on timing. If you're not sure, or if you're a little bit worried about that situation, again, I would suggest you email international@fanshawec, as in college, fanshawec.ca. Explain the situation, give them your student number, and they'll be able to advise you and share the refund policy and go over your options best, just because I don't know the refund details as well.
Caitlin, there's a bunch of questions popping up saying that the AAIP is only valid for September students.
Yeah. Again, sorry guys, I'm not an immigration advisor and I really don't want to give you the wrong information. So that's why I'm a little hesitant to answer these. I don't know what the new process is comfortably enough to speak to it. If you're not sure about any immigration questions, please email international@fanshawec.ca. Include your student number and they'll be able to help answer your question. And we have multiple people answering those emails. So you should get a fairly quick response in a couple of days, a day or two. I'm seeing a question about finances again during quarantine. So you're not going to be able to go to a bank until after your 14-day quarantine is done. So that means you can't withdraw cash, you can't set up a bank account, you can't do any of that until after your quarantine is finished. So the easiest option is to make sure you come with a credit card that will let you use it in Canada, because then you can just order your groceries online, pay with a credit card, pay your hotel with a credit card or your Airbnb with a credit card. That is by far the easiest option. You could bring cash, like if you can get Canadian dollars in your home country and just carry cash with you, that's an option. It's not perfect because again, you're in quarantine, so you're not supposed to be face-to-face with anyone to give them cash for something. But you might be able to make it work if you have a roommate that you can just kind of slide cash under the door and they can go buy stuff for you. But really a virtual debit card or a credit card are your best options because you will not be able to go to the bank during your 14 days. You can go after, that's great, but you can't go during quarantine. There's a lot of questions about which banks you can use. Usually ArriveCAN cards will work in Canada. If you're not sure whether your credit card or your bank card will work in Canada, I would say talk to your bank because they'll be able to tell you whether your account would be accessible in Canada or not. Some people are asking about applying for Canadian credit cards in advance. I don't know a lot about that, but yeah, you could reach out to your bank. So if you're with a GIC with Scotiabank, for example, maybe they can help you set up an account in Canada before you get here. So go talk to them, ask them. I'm seeing questions about phones too. So very similarly, you can't go to like a Rogers or a Bell or a Fido, which are all Canadian cell phone brands. You can't go to one of their stores until after your 14 days of quarantine are done, because those are usually in a mall. So you're not allowed to go out into public. So if you want to have a Canadian cell phone while you're in quarantine, Phone Box, which is that service we talked about earlier in the presentation, is really the best option because they'll send you the SIM card for the phone to wherever you're living, whether any country really, before you come to Canada. And then as soon as you land in Toronto or London, you can just pop that SIM card into your phone and you'll have a working cell phone for the first month. So that gives you just that kind of ease of access. You can talk to people more easily. You can call services, you can call the international office, you can have the ArriveCAN app. It just makes life a lot easier if you have a cell phone working during quarantine. And then after the first month, if you want to switch, if you find a better deal, great, you can switch if that's what you want to do.
And Caitlin, so I was able to speak to Emily and I apologize. We were definitely not communicated with that. The AIP was for the September intake term. If you got an approval during those dates, that's still valid. And if not, so we're encouraging you to still be applying for a study permit. If you're not approved, they are working on a refund process for that and what that would look like. And we can get you more on that hopefully later on in the series. Okay, so I apologize that it just wasn't really explained to us. But now we know.
I have a question here about the COVID test that I mentioned during your quarantine. So right now, that's only for the student. If your family travels with you, the Fanshawe is not planning to test your family. If that changes, we'll let you know. It might not be necessary for them to get tested. The students do, but the family members, it's not clear on. So right now, it's only planned for the students. A question about insurance. So any full-time student who is studying in Canada receives health insurance from the college. That health insurance starts a month before the start of term. So it would be active December 1st. So if you land in Canada December 2nd and you get sick or you want to go see a doctor, your health insurance will cover you. If you're studying online outside of Canada for the semester, then your health insurance is deducted from your fees. So you'll actually get a credit back because you can't use your health insurance outside of Canada. So if you're studying online outside of Canada, we don't want to charge you for something you can't use. But that usually happens after the 10th day of class when we know that you're not coming to Canada.
There's questions about the documents to include in your COVID readiness plan. And earlier on in the chats, we did send the documents. And I know one of our students, thank you, actually re-uploaded them and sent them as I was busy answering a bunch of questions. But there is a whole list of exactly what you need to have with you and exactly the process flow and stuff. So you just need to refer to those documents. I think Caitlin looks like she's going to share.
I just shared the screen again. So again, you need your regular documents that you just need even without COVID to come into Canada as an international student. So that's your passport, your entry visa, if you're coming from a country that needs entry visas, your Canadian study permit or the letter of introduction that says you've been qualified for a study permit. You should have a copy of your Fanshawe letter of acceptance because that proves that you're actually a real student, that you're a legitimate student coming to study at Fanshawe. You want to bring proof of your funds that you have available to support yourself in Canada. So that would be like your bank statements, probably the same ones that you submitted when you applied for your study permit. And then any other documents that have been recommended. So again, if you're traveling with your husband or with your wife, you want to bring your marriage certificate to prove that that's who they are, that you're legally married. And then with COVID, you want to bring all the information you can to show that you're following the quarantine requirements. So proof of where you're going to be staying, proof of your transportation from the airport to your quarantine accommodation, confirmation that you're not going to isolate with anyone who's vulnerable, confirmation that you know how to access food delivery services. So even if you just kind of write a very simple letter that says, I know that I have to have food delivered to my apartment, I plan to use Loblaw's online delivery or Grocery Guy online delivery. I'm going to be quarantining with one other person. We'll have our own bedrooms and bathrooms. I'm not going to leave my bedroom. I will avoid contact, right? Like just write out very simple sentences into like a one-page letter just to show that you understand what you need to do and what you're doing and show the border officer you're going to follow the rules. So it's really, everyone's going to have slightly different documents depending on what their plan is, but you just want to be as clear as you can to make sure that your plan is approved by the border officer. And again, if you have questions about your specific situation, email Fanshawe Cares and we'll help you out to deal with your circumstances.
So we don't have any PDFs for program specific things. Those would be provided to you from your program coordinator at your orientations. We don't have access to those. If you're looking to attend an area campus, you will need to reach out to that campus to find out specifics about what that would look like. So we don't know specifically how Simcoe campus is offering their programs and their resources and those things. So you would need to contact the Simcoe campus.
So I see a question, can we have phone box delivered to our Canadian quarantine address? Yeah, sure, if that's what you want. You just have to coordinate that with them. There's also a question about paying your hotel. So the hotel is probably going to require a credit card on file when you make the booking, and then you'll pay when you get there. So you can pay with that same credit card or you can pay with a different card, but at least to make the reservation, you'll need a credit card to make the reservation. So I'm just reading through all the questions here. Again, if you don't know your web advisor, password and username, email your student number to fanshawecares@fanshawec.ca and we'll help you get that information. And this is a question I've seen a few times. Can my friend pick me up from the airport? In theory, yes, but you're going to have to prove a couple of things. So if your friend is picking you up, I would suggest having just a little letter saying, so-and-so, my friend with their name is picking me up. This is their car license plate number. We are both going to wear masks in the car. I will sit in the back seat to be as far away from them as possible. We are going to go directly from the airport to this address, your quarantine address. Like just really clearly write it all down so that it's obvious you understand the rules and that you have a plan and you're going to follow them. But again, if you want to use the free transportation service, you can from Fanshawe. We'll take you to your quarantine address, and that's an approved service, so you don't have to worry about it. And it saves your friend from maybe being exposed. So I would encourage everyone to use our free transportation service because it's really a great option.
So food supports, grocery supports, any of those things are in the documents. I can resend them again. I've sent them a few times during this, but I can resend it again. So we can't provide the service for you, and we won't tell you which ones to use because it's all going to be based on your own preference, but we have done some research for you. So I will resend those right now. So if everybody listening, the next couple messages, it's going to be the PDF, the resources coming at that point, okay?
Now we are almost out of time. We just have a minute left. So I want to say again, this presentation has been recorded. We are going to share it on the Fanshawe International YouTube page. So you can definitely go through and watch it again. We have the PDF sent in the chat, but if you didn't get the PDF of this presentation, email Fanshawe Cares or email international@fanshawec.ca. We'll send it to you by email with all of the resource documents. So you can get this information again for sure. We're also going to be doing this presentation live again in 3 weeks when we do the Fanshawe Cares series again. So you'll receive emails inviting you to that event. So you can come and watch again if you want. And I'm going to end it here. I know there's still questions, but we only have a minute left. So thank you everyone for coming. It was great to see everyone. I hope that this was useful to you. Tomorrow's session is with our career services team. So they're going to introduce you to all the wonderful supports they have to help students prepare for working in Canada and finding their kind of dream job after graduation. So definitely come back and join us then. And have a great rest of your day, rest of your night, rest of your evening, depending on time. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Crystal, too, for joining.
1 second, Caitlin. I'm just sending a private email. So I just don't shut it off just yet. And I wanted to say we also will have an SLC on with us later this week, and they can go over more of the visa, the AAIP study permit questions.
Yeah, on Thursday, our immigration advisor is joining us for those questions. So we'll see you all tomorrow and Thursday. Have a great night, everyone.
Bye, guys. Take care.